If properly integrated, today's conversation will impact the rest of your life. Welcome to the Eric Osborne podcast. Friends, I want to just drop in with some real intentionality here in this moment. Because today, as I record with you, I am celebrating, sitting in, being with the 11th anniversary of my arrest for psilocybin mushrooms. And it is not a light memory, as you might imagine. And I find myself today quite surprised how impacted I am from this experience that happened over a decade ago. My life is completely different than it was then. I am a completely different person. And that is really the center point of what I want to talk with you about today, how that came to be, and how that impacts who I will be. Now, this is a subject that has been explored by philosophers, spiritualists, humans from time immemorial. It is the topic that we will continually return to. As a matter of fact, it is our everyday existence. I'm talking about our state of being. So if you are new to my work, I've been working with psilocybin for over 27 years. 13 years I've been public-facing, professional, helping people work through expanded states to become the next best version of themselves with psilocybin mushrooms as a catalyst. And that is what led to our arrest. Now, as I mentioned, the conversation around state of being is ultimately what was behind those challenging and fateful experiences. How can I say that? Here's the deal. I could have, in the moment, blamed everything and everyone around me. There were innumerable circumstances that led to what happened. As a matter of fact, it was another individual irresponsibly working with the mushroom that brought attention to me and my now wife and led to the raid of my magnificent mushroom farm. But I take full responsibility because it was ultimately my state of being, which frankly was egocentric, that was too concerned with external validation to pay attention to what was going on. There were multiple signs happening, and there was a lot that led up to it. I was selling mushrooms on the black market, not something that I ever wanted to do, and yet I was doing it. I was smoking cannabis all day, every day, despite being told in my mushroom experiences that I needed to stop. I needed to improve my relationship with that sacred plant. It's interesting as I reflect on that in particular, because changing my behavior with cannabis was one of the most difficult undertakings of my life. I have not tended to have a super addictive personality. I've absolutely abused alcohol and tobacco. There have been times when I couldn't break the habit, so to speak. But ultimately, with any of those substances, I was able to apply will and discipline to change my behavior. But with cannabis, I could not. And immediately upon my arrest, it occurred to me that it was actually an outcome of my abuse of cannabis, because in mushroom ceremony after ceremony, I would get the message to stop smoking cannabis. But I had made it such a part of my identity. If you were to see my mugshot, I have dreadlocks in there. And that was because I created this identity of Rasta. Now, that's an outside identity that I took onto myself, but it was a state of being that I assumed. And in that state of being, I assumed that everyday use of cannabis was an intrinsic part of it. I used to joke and say I would be like Snoop Dogg, smoke until the day that I died. And little did I know that those words that I was filling my world with, the identity that I was crafting for myself, is the very thing that kept me trapped, beholden to a substance. Now, after my arrest and we were on probation and being drug tested, I was very easy to stop using cannabis. But as soon as that probation ended, I went right back to it. And despite 2 years of clarity without that substance, I had not changed my identity, and I immediately assumed it once again. It took just a matter of days for me to become a regular cannabis user. And I hope you can understand that I'm not here to put down cannabis or cannabis users. Everybody has to understand their own relationship with whatever lifestyle, substance, or identity. For me, I knew it was problematic. I was struggling through the days. I was fighting to push through the tiredness and the clouded thinking. And for years after that, 2017, all the way to 2021, I continued to be a habitual cannabis user. And it wasn't until I discovered Maxwell Maltz's book, Psycho-Cybernetics, that things began to change. And that's really what I want to share with you today. Is not so much the book, even though it is a phenomenal piece of writing. It's not a literary classic by any means. It's more of a personal how-to that was written in the 60s. If you're not familiar with the book, this individual was a plastic surgeon who actually witnessed individuals either capable of or incapable of shifting their confidence after plastic surgery. He found that the determining factor whether or not someone really achieved the results they wanted, regardless of what the physiological change had been, was how they perceived themselves. It was their identity. Now, this is something that is often talked about in personal growth circles. It's not an uncommon conversation, but it is one that is worthy of revisiting time and time again, because every single day, our outcomes, the achievement or lack thereof of our goals, is entirely due to our self-conception, to our identity. And it runs so deep. How do you perceive yourself? I really want folks, I'm not sharing this just to be sharing something. I'm sharing this because it is one of the most transformative perspective shifts that you can take on. And it is a lifelong process. You will continue coming back to this over and over again. And as long as we see ourselves in any static way, whether it's poor, rich, happy, grateful, abandoned, however you classify yourself, whatever your core identity is, that is what you'll see in your life. So if what you see in your life is not what you want to see, well, you can blame circumstances, or you can take ultimate responsibility for your state of being. I know as much as anybody that that can be a very challenging reality to sit with. It's so easy and so desirable to find all kinds of outside reasons why we don't have the things that we want, or our life isn't as we would hope it to be. But the truth is, it is entirely up to us and our self-concept. Now, in this book, Maxwell Maltz refers to what is called the servo mechanism. He discusses how a plane, or he uses the metaphor of a plane on its trajectory, or a rocket sailing off into space, and that the rocket doesn't get to where it is seeking to go by direction as much as it does through correction. That constantly this built-in servo mechanism is recorrecting the rocket back on course. We are always going off course. I know you can see this in yourself. You can see maybe it's dieting. Maybe it is financial improvement. The ways that we find ourselves going off course are not due to a lack of willpower or a lack of self-control. They are entirely due to our self-concept. So, dieting is a great example for me. Weight loss. If we see ourselves as overweight, then we will continue to behave in the ways of someone who is overweight. Maybe I can bring it back to my own personal example with cannabis use. Here's how I actually broke this habit after decades of trying to. It's going to sound far too simple, but I promise you, I've applied this across various aspects of my life. It is something that I continue to apply. I have by no means reached the pinnacle of my desire. There are so many more things that I want to achieve in this life. And this process is how I continually come back to achieving those goals. So when I came home from Jamaica and I realized that I had to stop smoking cannabis every day. Thank God I came across this book and began to consciously develop a new persona. I looked back and I saw how I had created this identity of an everyday smoker. That was just who I was going to be. I just had accepted it. And so I began looking in the mirror, looking at myself and saying, I'm someone who just smokes weed at nights. It sounds too simple. It sounds too simple. Because I knew if I started with a baby step, maybe there would be more of an opportunity there, more likelihood. And so I would say to myself, just 2 days in a row, 2 days in a row. And I mean, you all, when I say I couldn't stop smoking cannabis, like there were hundreds of times when I would think to myself, I'm not going to smoke today. And by noon, probably I would find myself lighting up. And so, according to Maltz, the implantation of a new identity is a lot easier than we think. You can do things like look in the mirror and talk to yourself as I was doing. You can journal from the first person perspective, your new identity. So I began looking in the mirror 2 days in a row, saying to myself, Eric, you're just someone who smokes weed at nights. Start small. Well, the next day I got up and I found myself smoking at noon. And immediately, I felt to myself, why am I doing this? I only smoke weed at nights. But I was already there. So we went with it. I did my best to just be kind to myself and not berate myself for what was, could be perceived of as failure, and woke up the next day. And lo and behold, I did not smoke weed until the night. It was effortless. After many, many years of efforting, it just happened. And so I thought, wow, if this works so easily, can I program my mind to only smoke on the weekends? So, sure enough, did it. 2 days in a row. Eric, you're only someone that smokes weed on the weekends. I got through that first week, got to the weekend, and on Monday the next week I said, I don't smoke weed. I'm someone who used to smoke weed. It was that easy. I could not believe, after years and years of trying, all I had to do was craft a new identity. Now, there are other aspects of my life that are not quite as simple, but there are so many places where it is. As a father, I grew up with a very authoritarian household where um, spare the rod, spoil the child kind of mentality. And there has always been a part of me that did not really believe that that was the right way, and yet that is what I embodied. I wouldn't want to. I would find myself being authoritarian and aggressive and feeling really just not good about how I had reprimanded my children or dealt with certain situations. And so I began to talk to myself in a different way. I began to tell myself I was a different person. It just sounds too easy. It just sounds too easy. But I dare you. I just implored you to try this. See how simple it is to craft a new identity for yourself. You see this in psychedelic work quite a bit. People come in and they have a story about themselves. We all do. That's what our identity is. Our identity is a story about ourselves. And they come in and have a story about their trauma. They have a story about their mental illness. They have a story about their addiction. And no one can rewrite it for you but yourself. I can share this information, and some people take it and work with it, and some people don't. And the ones that do, especially when they are combining that with altered states, be it psychedelics or breath work or whatever the case may be, they find that neuroplasticity truly allows them to craft a new identity quicker. One of my favorite stories around this, or examples of this, are individuals who come in working on victim mentality. Now, I feel pretty strongly that all of us have an essential core being to ourselves that knows our limitlessness, that knows that we are divine. And in the right circumstances, with the right support, that core self can come to the surface, particularly in these altered states. And seeing someone who comes into working with the mushroom with the perspective of victim, life is happening to me, I'm so wrong. My everything about my life is wrong. And watching them move into the space of my life is perfect. My life is amazing. I am not a victim. I'm a victor. And seeing that change in real time is the most lasting change that you see in this work. I worked with so many people who come at this from a will it into being. I'm going to use the power of my will to create a new life, to become a new person. And it works sometimes for a while, but it eventually gives out. As you see, willpower is a finite resource. But our state of being, well, that's infinite. There is reason why biblically God refers to himself in the story of Moses and the burning bush as I am the I am. I am that I am. And there are some translations that suggest that it's actually the gerund form of the verb, that it is I will be what I will be. So as I'm sitting here today reflecting on my own experience with this arrest, there have been moments when I have felt remnants of that old identity. You see, when I was arrested and I felt pretty strongly that my life was going down the tube, that there was not a bright future ahead for me. I had witnessed my uncles arrested in the cornbread mafia. It had brought great distress to my family. And I perceived myself as, just another stain on our lineage. I'm actually fortunate that I had so many people fighting against me. I had ex-spouses and even my own family really pushing back on who I was and what I had done. You see, all those years that I was working with psilocybin underground, I knew that what I was doing was incredibly valuable. I knew that it was the future of wellness 20 years ago. And I approached that from this state of being that this is what I do. This is what I am bringing into the world, and nothing is going to stop me. There was absolutely a time period after that arrest where during the 8 weeks while we were going through trials and I was just completely uncertain, where I did lose track of that. I lost a good portion of that confidence and identity in who I was and what I was going to do with my life. After we made it through, I truly believe, the assistance of angels and divine support, I found that power within me again. And I said, no, I know what I'm here to do. I know who I'm here to be. And I did what was impossible. I started the world's first psilocybin mushroom retreat while on probation for selling psilocybin mushrooms. Starting those retreats by taking mushrooms to Jamaica. I was just some boy from Kentucky who had a love for human beings and helping people grow and the wonders of the fungal kingdom. But I chose this identity that allowed me to push through, and you have that in you. Maybe right now you are one of those individuals who is achieving the unimaginable because you have found that identity. And maybe you're someone who has done great things, and yet a part of your identity is not where you want it to be. You see, we have multiple aspects of ourselves. I spoke of myself as a parent, as a consumer, as a creator. You get to choose. That is the beauty of being human. You have free will. You absolutely get to choose who you are. What you accomplish in this life has so much less to do with what you do than who you are. When we left the retreats in Jamaica, I was told it was impossible to start a church the way we did. Donation-based, not centered around $3,000 retreats. And here we are. We've done it. Bootstrapped completely. Amazing people have been brought into my life to help with this. And that has everything to do with my identity. You see, that is what draws unto us opportunities. All this talk about manifestation, it's a real thing, but your manifestations are a product of who you are. And I have so much more to become. I want to really thank the people who have been with me over the years. It has been a challenging road, and there will be more challenge ahead. I know that. But I will craft and continue to craft this identity of someone who pushes through the barriers, who brings the impossible into being. Most recently, what I've been doing that has been transformative is crafting the identity of someone who gets up every single day, lifts weights, journals, and meditates. I'm going on probably 3 months now where this has been my daily routine. I don't try to. I don't even have to think about it. I just decided that that is who I am. You can do the same with whatever you choose. I am the kind of father who compassionately supports my children. I am the kind of society member who actively engages and is involved in my children's schools. And there are so many more things that I look to achieve. And I want that for you as well. I want you to be the highest version of yourself. And so When I share the stories of my own growth and progress, it's not in any way to boast or brag. I could have been so much more. I have not embodied the fullness of my identity. But I want to encourage you. I want my work and my life and my example to encourage you. This is not easy. It's not easy work, but it is so rewarding. This is embodying the Christ. This is becoming the God self. And so I want to share with you just a small activity that you can do as well. It just begins with journaling. It just begins with writing in the first person, I am. I am the kind of man that fill in the blank. I am the woman who does what? No one can define you but yourself. No one will. And if you give that authority and responsibility over to others, then you will walk around without definition. You will define yourself based on your expectations of others. And I have done it. This is what I was brought up in. It's what the majority of us are brought up to do. We allow other people to define who we are. Religion, society, family, none of that matters. It is the most liberating concept when you finally begin to apply it. And it will never end. There will always be new levels of expanded identity. I can look back at myself and even see physiologically that I am a different person. If you go online and look at pictures of me from 20 years ago, I look less healthy, far less healthy. I look older 20 years ago than I do today. And that is because of the identity that I crafted. I saw myself as an old man in my 20s. My 50s, which start in 4 years, are going to be my best decade yet. I already feel it. I see it. I'm creating that identity. I'm going to be one thriving, healthy 50 to 60-year-old and 60s and beyond. And that's what I want for you. I want for you whatever you want for you. And if you want for yourself to be a victim, then so be it. I want you to have that as well. There's a valuable lesson there somewhere. It may take lifetimes for us all to come to the realizations that we need to come to, and that's what it's all about. So as I am reflecting on my past, as I'm looking forward to my future, and you do the same, I hope I encourage you to, think about who you have been, the identity that you have constructed for yourself in the past, and the identity that you have constructed for yourself now. It's a cheat code. People talk to me about mushrooms being a shortcut, personal growth or spirituality. It's completely wrong. Even if they were. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with getting there faster as long as we do it responsibly? You can drive a car across the country, you can take an airplane. Neither one matters more. It's just up to you. So, as I think about who I'm becoming, and I encourage you to think about who you are becoming, let that be grounded in your identity. Do some real work with this. Sit and think about, write about who you are. And if you don't know who you are, if you don't know your identity clearly, look outside in your life. I look out in my life, I look at my physical world, and I see my identity surrounding me. And there are still things that I see need improvement. And there will always be. There is no ceiling, my friends. It just goes on and on and on. And I'm so grateful to be on this journey with you. If you have stayed for this whole monologue, then thank you so much. You're helping me become who I need to be, and I am here to help you become who you desire to be. It's a beautiful life we live. It's a magical world. Don't let the fear-mongering, don't let the false narrative claim your identity. Throughout history, throughout all the changes, and there will be so many changes. We are in a tumultuous time right now. There have always been people who have made it through in a shining manner. And that is because of their identity. It's not because of luck. It's not because of someone else doing something for them. All of those outside factors are simply related to how we perceive ourselves. It's real work, and it's really worth it. Thank you so much for being with me. I look forward to sharing more time with you in the future.